Chris, thank you so much for joining me. I have to say, it's an absolute honor. You can see my vintage Jericho back there as well.
Nice. Thank you. Appreciate it,
No,
man.
I'm really excited to speak with you because, like, as a wrestling fan, I know your history of, own heart inspirations, teaming with Lance Storm, but I don't know your horror origin stories. What were some of the movies that you saw growing up that maybe inspired your love of this awesome genre?
Oh man, I've been a horror fan for as long as I can remember. I remember pre VCRs that they used to have like late night horror movies in Winnipeg where I grew up. They would show two like on a Friday night, for example, maybe a Saturday, but they would start at midnight. And my mom would let me watch those movies, but I had to go to sleep first. So I'd have to go to sleep at like 10:30. If I could wake up at midnight, then I was allowed to go downstairs and watch the movies. So I was probably maybe 10, 9, 8 years old, something like that. And 9 times out of 10, I would wake up for those movies. But the few times that I slept in, I remember waking up in the morning with just the worst feeling like, fuck, I missed the Wolf Man. No. But that's where it all started for me. And was a huge horror movie fan in my teens, like B movies, Italian movies, Giallos and anything you could find. And that stayed with me to this day. I'm a massive horror movie fan, and will be for the rest of my life, I'm sure.
Well, I can't wait to get into a Chris Jericho sleepaway camp conversation
Oh
one
my
day.
gosh,
That will
don't even get
be
me started. That Sleepaway Camp 2 is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Pamela Springsteen, I love our
Amazing.
original, but she's so good in this. No, I love that passion you have for horror. And Dark Match is this fun, like late 80s horror wrestling matchup. I love what Dark Match has to do of this heel trying to find her position as a face, wanting to be this villain that they have her as to a good person. Was that heart and soul in the story kind of what attracted you to it?
Yeah, and that's a great take because I've said it all morning. I was a little bit hesitant when I first got this offer, which once again, anytime you get an offer, you gotta treat it seriously because it's a rare thing when you're an actor. Um, and that of course means that you don't have to impress anybody. You've got the part if you want it. Reading the script, seeing Lowell Dean attached because I was a fan of Wolf Cop, and then I realized, wow, he did a really good job with this. This is a lot deeper than just a wrestler movie. There's a lot of layers to this character, and a lot of twists and turns that you didn't see coming. So I really was excited to do the film once I read the script and started realizing that they've done a really good job of not patronizing pro wrestling, which is very easy to do. Because let's be honest, most wrestling movies just aren't good. But this was not one of those films. And I think as a horror movie, it's great. As a wrestling movie, as just a well-written movie, a well-shot movie, I was really happy with the whole process, and I'm very, very happy with the final edit right now.
All wrestling movies are notoriously depressing. I mean, Iron Claw, that was a great, like, well-made movie, but I'm like, this is
Yeah,
sad. I want something. This was fun.
yeah.
This gave me a little bit of it's campy, it's bloody, it's over the top. I also love your character of the leader. I like a supernatural element in my wrestling. I mean, Kevin Sullivan was one of my favorites growing up. So I love seeing, where did you pull that inspiration from for this character? Because he's so classic, but I also feel he's so fresh and new with this crazy leader you made.
Once I, like I said, once I read through the script and saw the final end game of this guy, because at first you're like, is he doing this because he didn't like the finish of a match? And you're like, yeah, that's pretty cheesy to want to start killing people. And then it's like, oh, he's doing snuff films. But then it's like, oh no, he's sacrificing souls to Satan to raise him from hell to destroy the world. And I was like, okay, now I'm in. And that goes beyond any wrestling character. I really especially when I saw the cowboy hat and the duster coat. It really reminded me of The Stand and the Walking Dude, Randall Flagg, the main bad guy in that movie or that film book, well, movie as well. But he's like living evil, right? Like he is the embodiment of Satan on earth. Now, the prophet's not Satan on earth, but he's trying to bring him
Yeah, yeah.
into earth. And I just really like this idea of a batshit crazy cult leader who will sacrifice his closest allies in a second if it means that he attains his goal of bringing hell on earth. And that to me was the big inspiration because that's exactly what happens in The Stand.
Oh, I love that. Again, your horror knowledge. You're just pulling from places I would have never thought of The Stand. That's such a
Yeah.
fun reference for this. And again, your wealth of knowledge in horror and wrestling, I'm sure played a big part. I don't know if they got on set were asking you questions about locking up or names, because my goodness, the wrestling names in this movie. I love Misbehave. Enigma Jones sounds like something Taz would call Jeff Hardy back in the day. I love it so much. What did you kind of do any help out with the,
Well,
the wrestling side?
I mean, if I have an executive producer credit, but I didn't really have to do a lot because, like I mentioned, Lowell had done such a great job of doing his homework. So all of that stuff was Lowell. All of those great names, and like they had, like Enigma Jones, for example, is an actual wrestler called Mo Jabari. They had a couple Calgary guys and Edmonton guys that were teaching Ayisha and Steven lockups. That was not my responsibility. And like I said, I did not want to come in this and do a bunch of wrestling stuff because to me, that's very cliche. And my whole mission was to have people not see Chris Jericho on the screen. And as the movie goes on, I think we accomplished that. Like at first, like, oh, there's Jericho. But I'm not one of the wrestlers at the beginning of the movie where you see Enigma Jones and Lazarus Smashley and all these names. I think people are like, well, where does Chris come in? And then you see where I come in, and it's completely different from what you were expecting. And I always like that. So to me, like I said, this is not Chris Jericho. The final match with me and Steven Ogg, I said no wrestling moves. This is not a. I don't want like okay, puts the walls of the prophet on. Wink, wink, wink. Because that to me is the equivalent of a boom mic in the shot. We
Mm.
created a really long, intricate fight scene that you could have done in a ring, on a street, in a field, on a mountain, like whatever. And that to me was the secret of this. Play it straight, but also don't patronize wrestling fans or pro wrestling itself. There's no reason to wink at the camera because the Prophet is not Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho plays the Prophet, but it's a completely different trip.
I think you do a wonderful job. You explain that perfectly. As a wrestling fan, I go, "Oh, Jericho's in a movie," and now I'm like, "This isn't Jericho. Who is this terrifying man?" Like
Yeah,
you, you,
thank you.
yeah, you do very well with it. I mean, I love your back and forth with Steven as well. Steven Ogg's one of my favorite, like kind of
Yeah,
one of those actors. You're like, "Oh, he's in this. I love it,"
yeah.
and I love what you bring to this. So I want to kind of test your wealth of pop culture knowledge real quick. So Dark Match is this very, unique film. I really can't place another one that reminds me of it. Could you pick me one to double feature with us? Maybe go back to your 80s knowledge. You talk about creature features, back in the day. What would you something you would pair with Dark Match?
And that's an interesting question because I'm trying to think like what kind of fits the vibe of this film. Uh, because it's not a slasher film. It's
Mm,
deeper than that. Um, I don't know. Maybe you could do something just off the top of my head. Maybe you could do something with like maybe demons. The I think it's Dario Argento,
hmm.
where the demons take over a movie theater. So it's kind of more of just a normal existence where there's a lot of evil things going on. Because I think to me that's kind of what this movie is. It's more of a satanic cult movie than some sort of an action adventure. Maybe like Night of the Demons with Linnea Quigley, something like that. I'm sure I could find something better. And next time I talk to him, I go, "Hey, DJ, I got it. It's this one." But I think something demon involved would fit that type of a vibe more than a Sleepaway Camp would, or more than a Dawn of the Dead would, or something like that.
It gave me the early Rob Zombie road trip vibes at the beginning too, where I was like, "Oh, please don't turn
Yeah,
that corner down that street to go
yeah,
there." And
yeah, yeah.
I love
It's
those
got that
feelings.
vibe to it. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. I think, Chrissy, you do such a great job with here. I want to see you in more horror films. I think the horror community is like fully wanting you with us more. Like you're such a fan, you're such a fan in it that it shows. So
Yeah.
I want to say thank you so much for bringing your fun energy here and, talking with me today.
No, thanks. I appreciate that, man. And hopefully there'll be a lot more to come. Hopefully there's many more deaths in the pipeline for me.
Only for a horror movie can we say something like that.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks.